I'm trying to send it out right now.
Well, do we have it?
I have two printed, one for Sarah.
Well, that's
I
what I
gave
was
it to
gonna
her.
say.
And one for me.
Yeah. Same person. This will be for 30 minutes. That's what they're working on. Younger one, actually. Yes. I mean, was she on?
Jumped as fast. I doubt something new in, something that's right got a hold of it. There you go. It is. I saw the Hawkeye scratching her really do a W. Well, it wasn't the end. Michigan State and then elevated run in the second half.
Wait, so is it not?
It was like their defense was standing there watching.
Hey, Bobby. Not here. Take a little water. How are you?
Okay,
All right.
sorry for a little bit of a late start, but welcome. This is a nice full room.
Tell everybody to turn their.
If everybody could mute your mics that happen to be joining us online, that would be helpful. And because we will be recording the meeting, if you speak in the room or on the online team, please make sure to identify yourself so that we know that in the recording who's speaking. Thank you guys for being here. I think this is as many people as we've had back in our room since COVID. That's nice. So flu A's going around. How are we feeling? So anyway, thank you for joining today, and thank you for making the time to be here. Sorry for the late start. As you can see, we survived the tornado drill, so it's all good. And you'll be glad that we didn't do that while you were here. I know that our meeting is scheduled till 12:30. I intend to try to wrap this up by 12. So that's my intention, but of course we don't want to shut down any good conversation that we need to have. So I'm going to start with I guess the approval of minutes. Anybody have changes or amendments to the minutes that were sent out by John Carlton? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
There are changes to the minutes needed? Okay. All right, so we will approve minutes. Is there a motion from the core committee?
I make a motion. Donna McNeil.
Second, Mark Sneed. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're kind of getting things maybe a second out of order here. Let me check through the list of the core committee, see who we've got here. If you'll just answer, Brian Bingham,
Here.
Rick Shireman, Chris Bovee,
Online.
David Peterson,
Here.
Eric Willis,
Here.
Donna McNeil, here, James Noel, Jennifer Burt, Joe Pavoni,
Here.
John Webb, is here, Kay Sanborn, here, Kim Paget, LJ Turner, Linda Bridwell, Mark Hall, Mark Sneed,
Here.
Russell Rose,
Here.
Sandy Williams. Sandy's on EPA call right now, but.
I'm here for Sandy.
You're here for Sandy. Got you, Russ. You're next on the list. Russell Neal, Scott Treese,
Here.
Scott Young,
Here.
Valerie Lucas, here, Richard Kress, or Judith, or John Rudolph. Okay. All right.
I'm here. Sorry, John Rudolph's here.
Okay, good deal. Thank you, John. Okay. We have these giant lists of committees that we will have people take a look at and add your information for the committees that you are sitting on. We will not go back through them again because that is too tedious and labor intensive at this point. We've been through it. So if you will just add your emails, your phone numbers to the spreadsheet. Are we just going to send this around, John?
Yes, I've got one right here.
You've got one there to send around? Okay. So we have a lot of good participation, and I'm excited about that. I was able to visit with Kentucky League of Cities and get some additional participation on some committees, so that'll be good to spread that out a little bit across the state. And so we will get those committees going. We'll have some good assignments there. And one thing I would ask is that committee chairs, please notify John Carlton when you intend to have a meeting. We'd like to keep track of those committee meetings and perhaps put them online so people know when they're occurring. And we'll look for good reports coming out of our committees going forward. I know some of you are meeting regularly as it is. John, did you want to go ahead and address the regular meeting schedule?
Yes, everybody's got that in the email. It's, I can pull it up from here.
Has everybody seen the dates that are established for 2025? Are there any firm objections, big conflicts to that meeting schedule that anybody's aware of?
March 7 today, June 13, September 12, and December 5th.
What is eighth?
It's that Wednesday, Thursday before the budget.
Okay.
And these are all Fridays.
So will that conflict with ACE?
No.
Okay. Yep. All right.
12th does conflict with the AWRI symposium.
Okay. We may need to adjust that one.
It does conflict with the water boat conference too.
No.
That's in New Orleans this year, water, there'll be several.
Okay. So it sounds like we have a couple of conflicts to consider, and we want to make sure that we have as much participation as possible.
We also
So
have our Senko conflict.
I have an orthogonal conflict every.
That's not what I meant though.
There's an orthogonal conflict, yeah, so, my calendar's challenging. So
I'm sending this subcommittee's email right now.
Okay, so let's do this. If you know of, especially if it's an industry event that is in conflict with one of these dates, go ahead and email John Carlson. And we will revise that list of dates to ensure that we have as much participation as possible. We don't want to leave anybody out. So we'll revise that and get it back out and then probably have another one. But we'll try to avoid those things. And as much as we can to keep the larger events on our calendar as well so that we know when we're scheduling that we don't have an issue. That's important too. So the next thing on the agenda is the approval of committee member lists. I'm going to table this because I feel like I want to make sure that people have their information correct and have one more chance to go through the list. As I found out at Kentucky League of Cities, Scott didn't necessarily want to be on every committee that I put him on. So I just figured he was a great participant. And so feel free to edit, take yourself off if you overcommitted last time you were here and you don't want to be on every single committee or any such thing. So we're going to table that. We'll come back to it when we can send out a complete list. Coordination for drinking water at the Commonwealth publication. This is something that we discussed in the last meeting. I kind of threw it out there that this is a goal of mine. And I've had a little bit more time to think about it. And I've had a chance to talk with some people about it as well. This is not something that's being required by the governor's office. So I want to make that clear. I think there might have been some confusion. This is something that I would like to provide to the governor's office. This is something I'd like to be able to provide to our legislators that tell them in a very explicit, pointed, and meaningful way how important water is to this state. I want to focus on drinking water in this iteration. Perhaps we will do drinking water alternate or wastewater alternately. But I want to focus on drinking water this time through. And what I'm hoping for is some organizations or groups that have specific expertise in perhaps the development of materials. So we have a professional looking thing coming out of this committee. We can do it here in-house, but if other people would like to contribute that set of skills to this effort, that would be helpful. I would like to think about what sections we want to talk about, like what are the topics that we really want to drill down on. I hope that you all saw that in Newsweek, we were highlighted as the state that had the we were third for lowest health-based violations in the country. The first was Hawaii. They had 2 health-based violations. I bet they've never had a DPP. Their water age is 30 minutes. So I figure we're doing okay. And Delaware, I mean, come on, that's Madison County, right? So we're doing okay. And if you divide the number of health-based violations by population, we have the lowest in the continental United States, and that is outstanding. And I will say, because I helped lead the drinking water branch in the past, and we've had a wonderful leader until recently, the drinking water branch. I promise you, nobody's sliding by. Violations are issued when appropriate. We work very hard on the way that we measure compliance, and I'm very proud of that number because I feel like we can stand behind it 100%. So anyone that pumps water from the Ohio River and has 137 surface water systems, you know, in this part of the country that can boast that kind of compliance, I mean, kudos to all y'all. It is the systems, it's the organizations and the people that assist those systems that this speaks to. It's not us. We just check boxes. We do more than check boxes. I don't want to take it down that low. We do provide a lot of support, and I'm really, really proud of the role that we have in that. But the accolades are really to the people that are making it happen out there. So thank you guys for that. That is something that we will want to highlight in this drinking water report, I imagine. And so similarly, in 2023, we had the same type of note to our record that we had the lowest health-based violations in the United States. And then also there was a second report that was about best water in the nation. I think it was primarily a survey Louisville water customers because it was systems over a certain size. So either way, Kentucky's on the map for great water. And I think that they should all know that. I think that everybody that makes our rules, that is asked questions about what water means to this state, I think everybody should know that. I think economic development should have this in their hand when they're bringing in people to our state to say, we have great quality water, we serve a lot of people, we have the ability. Now, on the other side, I'm also working, we've kind of stalled out, but we're getting ready to reinitiate an effort to come up with something to help counties understand how much water they have to spare for economic development. I think sometimes that's oversold at a local level, and then you have something built that you can't support or you have to expand for. So we're also helping on that side. But we have great quality water. We do a good job here, and we'll work on it from both sides. But again, I just want this publication to be something that people can refer to that highlights the great things going on in our industry. We're too quiet about it. So if you have talents that you want to offer in this area, please let us know. But I would love to hear your ideas about what are the topics that should be covered? What are the things that we should be talking about in this publication, which I want to be a product of this committee, not of the Division of Water. I want it to be from this committee because I want it to be representative of our stakeholders.
The Water Grows Kentucky thing is getting some legs, I think, with
I love it.
multiple organizations, and I would reach out to Kelly about that, okay? That she's got that. And I think Scott, you and some other organizations are kind of involved in that now too, right?
I saw Darren Thompson did a great spot.
Yeah, man, I wouldn't put him on camera, but.
Well, you know.
I'm just teasing, I wish you was here for that.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. So tell me a little bit more about the So the Water Grows Kentucky is primarily is a Louisville water initiative. Is it?
Kind of, but I don't want to. I kind of think it started there, but it was a regional collaboration in that corridor, 65 corridor kind of thing, and then with an idea of taking it more broadly. And I'm not sure who else involved in it now, but I know it's gone over to Central Kentucky. They got some stuff and they're doing it sort of linking economic development and water quality and quality of life kind of issues. But I'm not the best spokesman for that program.
All right.
Hey, Sarah, I have an idea. When Patton had the 409 strategic vision that they put out, and I want to say, was that 99 to 2000 when they put out that strategic roadmap about service, water service and sewer service in Kentucky, the 2020 plan? We're past, we're within 20 years of that. I think maybe it would be great for us to go back and kind of revisit that because there was some really great data in there and great things. And we've met and kind of really surpassed those goals in that plan. So why don't we look at our history and maybe revisit what that looks like and maybe look at that vision going forward for our industry? That's just an idea.
I think that's a great idea. And so that would then talk about regionalization.
Yep.
Which we obviously are a leader.
And that viewer is a great thing to point out because it's pretty powerful to look at.
It is.
So that timeline was 1998, actually when Roger Governor.
Yep.
Sort of put that out there. And then, I think Senate Bill 409 was 2000. It was sort of the supplement to that kind of changed the planning.
That was the funding was based on that.
They're getting some funding out
Yep.
of legislation before that, but 409 really did was reorganize that planning councils. And then, but then they used that to funnel money.
And all those management plans came out of that, right?
Yes.
So those management plans, again, were regional in their approach, which we don't necessarily do now in the same way. But I think there's a lot of that strategic plan was, I mean, the stuff in there is pretty amazing. And just the language and their conclusions and what they thought about, I think it'd be a great way to maybe tie that back into
To go back and say,
what
this
have
is
we
a
done?
success.
what can we do in the future? Because we still have challenges, right? And it isn't necessarily extensions, but on the wastewater side it is. But like, what are our challenges, right? And those are those DEPs and consolidation. What do we do about our leftover populations that are not well served? Those kind of things.
Well, I think that gives us an opportunity, Chloe, to your point, it was the 2020 plan, right?
Yes.
So we're in 2025.
Yeah.
So it gives us a springboard to say, what's next, right?
Yes.
I
I think that would help everybody, even in this room.
Yeah, I think that we've had we've taken a look at statutes and regs around that, and, how does that need to be updated? Because it's very specific.
Planning, absolutely.
And our ads are looking to us to say, hey,
Absolutely.
this is in the past.
Yep.
Now what? So it may give us an opportunity to say, here's what we hope the future looks like.
A springboard.
Right, yeah.
Along that lines, I'm sorry, the Legislative Research Commission did a follow-up to that Senate Bill 409 and did a legislative report as to how well that bill was implemented. I think that was in 2010, 2008, something like that. But it did lay out some strategic ideas and topics in order as to how to maybe this you might want to look at from that perspective, if the legislature looked at that once again.
Yeah, I forgot about that. I completely forgot about that.
So we want to shuffle this back to the top. We want to put this back at the top of the deck and say, hey, we need to take another look at what strategic goals are in the district.
At the last meeting, you had talked about reviewing a history of the regionalization program, so this kind of goes hand in glove with that.
Right, yeah. I agree.
If I can remind everybody to say your name when you speak for those online.
I'm Joe Julius. I remember some years ago, I was in a workgroup, I think John headed it up, and what we were looking at was what to do to build on the patent initiative. And we had a lot of good ideas flying around in there, and I don't know whatever happened.
I know, I still have the pictures of the whiteboard on my phone. Those were really good meetings.
Yeah,
And
probably
it spoke
was.
to the fact that we need a legislative initiative probably to push us into the next phase. So I think that we can use this to encourage that next step. But, we want to be really strategic about it. We don't want this to be a wasted effort. We don't want it to be something that's easily passed over. There needs to be a little bit of a call to action there, a gentle call to action that we can use.
I think it's important to keep in mind the drivers then for regionalization and what the drivers may be now or could be, because I think they're different. I do expect that we'll have another wave sort of maybe a secondary wave of regionalization consolidations because of various economic and regulatory things.
So that will go under challenges.
Yeah, but I think the drivers are not the same anymore. Just my 2 cents worth.
Sure.
Well, one big driver is going to be economics. With the new regulations coming out, a lot of these small systems, they're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, it's a hard environment right now. So I think that we could also focus on our partnerships, the division's partnerships with our stakeholders. The various groups with rural water, with our, I can't not say RCAP, and others, where we have contractual relationships, but also just support relationships. And I think built into that is how we respond to things that are put before us, like emergencies. And I think resilience and recovery needs to be an important topic. And I'll say that even with the challenges that we face with aging infrastructure and funding gaps and compliance with new rules and all that kind of thing. I can tell you, coming off of the heels of this last disaster, we've made gains in the last 5 to 10 years. Some of these systems are recovering a whole lot faster than they were 5 or 10 years ago. And I think that speaks to the after the emergency actions that are taking place. So going back and making sure that they are wired up for generators, making sure that they have a line on generators, making sure that lines that are problematic are getting replaced, and brick funding, and all the different funding mechanisms that are in place there. We're recovering faster, even though our disasters keep getting worse. So I think that that's an important point. And it's going to take a lot of momentum to continue to trend in that direction. As things become harder, recovery will get harder. So we're in a good place, in a better place these days than we have been in the past. By the way, yesterday was the first day we reported 0 out of water from the flood. And it was 5 the day before that. So I was watching it, just waiting for it to go to 0. And it was 5 at high elevations, waiting for 6 to go. So that is, in comparison to floods that I worked early on with Division of Water, that's incredible. I remember a time when we had people in Cumberland, Kentucky out of water for 45 days because of snow and ice. This is not the case today, so we're doing better. What other topics can you think of that need to be front and center for telling the story of Kentucky Drinking Water?
I think this forum probably doesn't exist in a lot of states.
The thing is, I don't think there's a TA section, technical assistance section in most states.
We could probably do technical assistance and AWOP together. Our AWOP program is very successful and, of course, doesn't happen in a lot of states.
And it's evolved, just like LT2, right?
Oh, yeah, we're getting ready to, which I have to talk to Sarah and John about, to participate, hopefully in a corrosion control treatment CPE. First one ever, EPA asked us if we would consider partnering with them.
Where's that going to be?
We don't know. We haven't got, it was just brought up to us yesterday. So, and I told them, I said, yeah, I'd be very interested, but I said I had to talk to leadership about it, see what we can do
I love that EPA knows where to come. Figure it out.
on a lot of things,
It's true. I think that we probably would do a huge disservice if we didn't highlight WRS and the power of that tool.
You can do it in the context of other collaborations that you have, official collaborations with Rural Water, RCAP, or whatever they're calling it today. Kentucky Water Research Institute, et cetera. And KIA, obviously, because a lot of agencies, KIA is in the same agency as the regulatory agency, or a lot of states, in the same agency. You're not, so it's a very interesting dynamic there too.
Right. So, so that might go into, we have external stakeholders and internal stakeholders to the division, so other agency partners. Is there anyone that is interested in taking the lead of authorship of any of these sections? But anyone that is really passionate about just starting the framework
Can anyone hear me?
Yes?
Oh, there we go. Sorry. It was muted. I see it's unmuted now. Sorry about that.
No problem. Sorry. Okay, can you guys hear? Can somebody say yes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great, all right.
Yeah, we can hear no picture.
So case studies from individual systems.
Logan Todd has a case study that EPA has highlighted. It's already written. I have a copy I can share. I'd like to have input on this, but I don't want to take the responsibility of writing it.
Don't we all? I just want to have input. Yeah, okay.
And there are other utilities in the state that have won EPA awards, that maybe we should highlight those Pisces and Aquarius awards through the SRF programs.
Okay.
And I think what funding has been attributed to infrastructure improvements in drinking water needs to be a part of this discussion. Because the state legislature put a lot of money into that to start with. Not every state does that.
I think it's worth having a discussion in there about how SRFs are impacted these days, or what the difference in SRF funding might be.
Yes.
Or do you think that'll just become hindering?
I think that's an appropriate topic to put in the challenges that we're facing as an industry in the state right now. I mean, if this is going to go to people who hold purse strings, maybe they should know the monetary aspect of the challenges that we face, and that's reduced SRF and increased costs everywhere else.
And I think that we could highlight the success of build funding as well, and the projects that we were able to fund through that special funding stream.
That's what I was going to say, Sarah. I think it's important that we tell the story of all the ancillary things from SRF, that all the other things that it creates and does behind the scenes, because I don't think that's often well interpreted at the congressional level.
Okay.
One thing I just wanted to give simplicity caution about, that when we speak to legislators about SRF set-asides, they don't want to hear it. That'll shut down the conversation faster than anything. That's my experience. Is that yours?
I was trying to be more politically correct in my response. Yes.
Everybody loves a good earmark.
I think too, Sarah, this is Maggie Neal from Great Lakes RCAP. I don't know how much this would play into it as well, but the Division of Solid Waste also has grants that go in for cleaning up waterways. You have the Kentucky Waterway Alliance. I mean, there are a lot of other parties that are also working and going to be significantly impacted by this. So, I mean, the solid waste grants go out across each county every year, and counties are helping to clean up those waterways further. So, I mean, they're helping to eliminate pollution and just debris that's in the creeks and streams and waterways.
Sounds like we can put that under our source water topic, maybe?
Yeah.
Does that work, Maggie?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We have
Anything
a lot of
else?
systems that actually use small creeks, bays for sources.
Yeah.
And what are they gonna be like? You can't put a boat on some of them.
We can't even go there today.
I
We can't even go there
I
today.
think, Sarah, this is a kind of a twofold. It's the water workforce. So one, highlighting the value of the water workforce, the men and women that are, 24/7 helping in that resiliency aspect, some of their stories, and then also highlighting the challenges of the water workforce as we go forward.
So, Sarah, maybe I lost the thread on this. Are you thinking about this as a regular sort of thing that's issued, like a newsletter from the division or something? I'm not sure.
I really I don't necessarily want it to be a one-off, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be an annual thing either. Maybe a 5-year check-in. 2025 seems like a nice place to start. And then maybe on some sort of alternate schedule with clean water as well. I just feel like we need a chance to collectively tell people what we're doing together and why that matters, right? It's just like the Newsweek thing, like, I'll tell everybody about it, I'll tell the story about it, but it's not my success. You know, we just share a piece of that. So I want to make sure that everybody is sharing in the success of the things that are happening in the state. And, like, you have something to say. You look like you have something to say. Are you sure?
I'm intently listening, Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah, Brendan O'Brien messaged in the chat and said that they would be interested in the drafts.
Who is that?
Brendan O'Brien.
Can you make a note of that, John?
Yes. What?
Brendan O'Brien, he's on the last chat in the street.
It's, yeah. Just say yes.
Just
No,
just make a
that
note
he's
of the name
offering.
that he's offering to help. And so, Val, is it worth, on the 24/7 piece, is it worth calling this essential? I mean, is that something that we want to push on a little bit? On the essential worker piece? Is that too charged?
No, only if you want to avoid waterborne disease and floods.
I also like economic development, that's nice. Might need to have some water and wastewater infrastructure for that.
Adam, Scott, do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts on the essential worker piece of that?
Well, that is the title of our conference this year, is You Are Essential. And I think one of the things that we try to do at all of our trainings is to build support and understanding that they are essential for our operators, you know. And so I think a lot of times they're somewhat beat down. And so what we've been trying to do is build it back up, not take a stance one way or other when it comes to legislation or anything of that sort, but at least start building back up the core belief of what they do, what they serve. And I think because of that, I think you will start having some more support, at least from the ground level, popping up.
How would you frame that in context of public health? Do you have a statement around the role of our operators in public health?
You know, one of the things I say quite often, when I give a presentation, I know this can upset some people, but I'm fine with it, is that, you know, when you talk about health and safety, you know, I'm affected by a water operator every single day. We talk about police officers, things of that sort. I haven't encountered a police officer in 20 years.
So you say.
I've been saying that for 2 years now. But I think that is important. It's a better understanding of our industry as a whole and the impact and effect that operators have. If we don't understand that what the benefit to having highly trained, qualified operators in the water treatment system, you know, they do something wrong, it can affect thousands upon thousands of people's lives. So that's the stance, is that, you know, something off affects everyone.
Yeah. Maybe LaFever and I did a presentation at a Kentucky League of Cities conference one time, and we were talking about workforce. And a mayor raised his hand and said, if I gave my operator a raise, he'd make more than my city manager. How can I justify that? I was like, when was the last time that did save somebody's life?
Yeah.
You know? I mean, so it's important, I think, to elevate the importance of those jobs and put those out there. So I think it's recognized. Obviously, we had a piece of legislation last year saying, tell us more about how to recruit and retain operators, so they're aware. We just need to keep it on front burner.
There's always legislation in Florida. I know I'm getting legislation from the division with the city, legislation from others, you know, how Florida is trying to classify as essential personnel. I think it's important, but I do think the issue that we have is very similar to just said, Sarah, is that, you know, we have individuals or operators, first-line supervisors who do not treat them as essential, who do not even understand their role most of the time. And so if we can't build a certain level of understanding of the importance of an operator, within the system. And this goes for wastewater as well. I mean, I think it's very easy to think about the importance of having a highly qualified water operator, but I kayak. I go out all the time on the creeks and waterways in Kentucky. And so that's just as important to me as drinking water. But I think if we as an industry, or we as a committee or a group do not start emphasizing the importance of these individuals and downplaying the importance of them, then we're not going to move forward. We're just not. And it just doesn't matter. So until we do that, and sometimes it goes all over for the utility. You know, you have certain utilities that have no problem paying their operators, you know, a good wage of what they're worth and their value. And they have no problem raising rates to ensure that that happens. But we have a lot of utilities out there who just say, we can't pay that. And they're losing operators. We hear that all the time. It's like, well, you have the ability to raise rates to ensure that you have highly qualified operators. So until that happens, you know, we're just kind of spinning our wheels saying, you know, and I'm not talking astronomically. You talk to Grayson County Water District, they pay well. They have great individuals there. So Lebanon's the same way. There are utilities out there that do it. So we just have to make sure it's important.
Good.
Hey, Sarah.
Yes.
So I just looked, because Russ brought this to my attention. I looked, the state of Wyoming last week they took it a little step further. And so they passed legislation that deemed the water and wastewater operators as essential, but also deemed them as first responders for emergency response. And so I'll get my hands on that legislation and share it with the group. I think we ought to aim high and see what we can get done.
Pretty different. Like much like the Kentucky grows water, it grows. You can see a path where it's like, what does this career and this career have in common? Oh, they both utilize water and wastewater. You can't be a doctor and perform surgery without clean water. So I think, there could be a really good social media kind of push.
Yeah. That would be great.
And there's a lot of times that, something happens and water operator, when the tornadoes hit, water operators from all kinds of counties showed up to assist the water system.
Yeah, I think that'll go under our partnerships.
Yeah, it's.
And we can highlight, especially KY Warren there, which I understand is getting a new breath of life. So that's really great. I'm excited to hear that they're going to stand that board back up and work on that a little bit. I've got some ideas there too, but I think that goes to what you're talking about.
And it's not just them, even within the division, it's all hands on deck.
Sure.
PAs aren't emergency responders, but they're out there turning valves. Same thing with wastewater. If it's a distribution system, anything affected,
Sure.
it's kind of like throughout the division and all hands on deck type thing.
Sure.
And not just us, Woolwater.
And I think the recent emergencies will resonate as well, and what the role of water professionals are in the recovery, the response and recovery to especially weather emergencies.
How many of us sat at FEMA zones?
Well, and also, one of our, excuse me, Joe Bologna, one of our shticks, one of Vincent Doug's shticks, when he gives tours that really resonated with me one of the first times I went through it, listening while he was giving a tour, was we run, and some of them are automated, granted, but we run 3 million tests a year on our drinking water to make sure that it's safe. That's a crazy huge number. Think about all the work that goes into making sure that we put out, what goes outside the fence is safe for people. And obviously, I don't know what the number is on the wastewater side, but regardless, just on the drinking water side, that's a huge, and we're all doing, maybe not that exact number, but we're all doing a lot of that again. If you're talking to the public or elected officials, numbers like that, they're so staggering, I think, make it impact. We asked them to guess, how many tests do you think we do a year? And the big number is usually 1,000. I'm sure you test my water 1,000 times a year. not even close.
Right. And the division regularly, when we present, we talk about the analyticals that we look at. So it's usually 90,000 tests a year. It's not 90,000 results a year. And that's just, on what we regulate. So it doesn't even come close to what each individual system does. So, I think that's a really big point is how they visit, right? I mean, it speaks to that. Okay.
From a coordination standpoint, would it be, I think it would be, could be broken down by each committee taking a portion of this and from their perspective and taking and writing that, like operator recruitment and retention takes something and says, this is what an operator is, their importance, and kind of head that up to kind of divide up the duties a little bit.
So let me do this. I think we have a lot of things here that could create a framework. So let me sit down and put together an outline of what we think this thing could look like and get it out to folks. And then think about if there are committees that could work on it, or if there are people that are particularly passionate about one area that want to take a couple of paragraphs, that kind of thing. And start to figure out who's going to do what part.
Is this a report, a presentation?
I'm seeing a glossy magazine in my head that could also be translated to online. That's what I'm seeing in my head, but somebody revise that if it's bad. Does anybody look at the glossy magazine anymore?
Maybe an electronic version of that?
Yeah.
But that's just because then we can disperse it in social media.
Right.
As an example for other states that would make you jealous.
And we could probably also translate that into some sort of condensed story map format
And have it embedded in there.
But it could also be an article for like AWWA Journal and things like that.
Yeah. And also under source water, the mention of story map makes me want to say specifically, we need to make sure that we're looking at our nutrient reduction stuff. That Josiah's been so good about getting done for us. And then he's published some great products too that can feed into that. And how that affects drinking water.
Sarah, Richard here with North County Water District. How you doing? I don't mean to talk to your back. A little hard to hear back here.
I'm
So
sorry.
it's all good. So the framework for this, is your bid? So this committee is almost a vision and at the pleasure of each director of the Division of Water. So is this a framework to capture the work of your individual steering groups? Is this a monthly or an annual? Have you thought about how frequently you want to do this?
So I think my
Because
thought
you do your
right
own-
now
you do
is
your
kind of a once every 5-year update
I
kind of thing.
I
Like just a big, here it is. Here's the state of the industry right now. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
So the subcommittee process works really well. So if you want to assign we have great professionals in Bill Kelly,
Sure.
Louisville Water, so that might be a useful tool with the goal to fill this thought.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I'm sorry I'm talking out this way.
It's all good.
I've never been accused of being hard to hear.
I know, it's all good.
Maybe, Sarah, it's Maggie from Great Lakes RCAP again. Maybe as a recommendation, since I know in my work, I find it difficult because most things in small water systems revolve around every 4 years because that's when you have administrative changes. And so if we're trying to help push this information out to make decisions and have it get to the decision makers and have them understand what we're doing, it might be better to do it on a shorter time period.
Yep, I agree. That could be a factor. We need to think about that. What I want to do is get this on the ground, set some goals for completion, get some people moving on it. Because as Richard so aptly points out, this changes by the director and never know what tomorrow will bring. So let's get something on the ground and moving so that it will make any transitions that could occur going forward and get a good product out. All right. Any final thoughts on that topic? Thank you guys for your great input, and I'll draft something up and get a framework out And then you guys can give me feedback on that, and we'll go from there. All right, so let's hit the reports portion of the agenda. We've got about 40 minutes. Personnel update. The biggest note that I want to make is that Alicia Jacobs has moved on from the drinking water branch. We're sorry to see her go. She has joined staff at Kentucky American. So we are happy for her and her new opportunity, but we are certainly sorry to lose her hard work and her expertise in this area. We are working to repost that job. And so we expect to hopefully fill that soon. It's a high priority position for us, obviously. And if we are successful at posting that externally, then we hope that you'll spread the word and anyone who might be a good candidate will take a look. So we'll let you know when that goes out. Hopefully, probably in the next, I'm going to say probably month, you should be listed and up to be filled. John, do we have any other personnel updates?
Other than we are, thankfully, I mean, we typically, our division personnel cap is 226 people. We typically have run like 10 below that for the last couple of years, and we are, as of, I think, the 16th, we should be only 2 below our personnel cap. So that really helps a lot in terms of being able to keep up with the volume of work that we have as an agency. So yeah, great news that we've retained and recruited well here over the past year or so.
So I think it's important to say the division is nearly full at our 226 cap, and we're right. And also that we have 18 FFTLs working now. I think it's around 18. So we're, as a division, at full tilt. And everybody is busy, regardless of what you see on the news. Government workers work really hard, or at least they appear to when I walk by. They do a lot of really good work, and we have so many initiatives in front of us right now with new regulations coming on and changes that are occurring every day. We have so many permitting actions that run. I don't think even with my years in the division, I didn't appreciate how many permits we issue until I was the one signing them. It's staggering the number of permits that we issue. In fact, I had to pull a number the other day. And since May 2023, we've issued, I think it was 3,800 KPDS permits. So that's a lot of permitting that the division does. And they do it really well. We don't have a big backlog. We don't have crazy things hung up for years and years here. We've been able to move things through that permitting backlog. And there were times in our history when we did have big permitting backlogs, but that's not been the case for a while now. So we're really proud of that. And John reminded me that we will have a new clean water section supervisor in the water infrastructure branch. Now, this is something new, something old, but something new. So we have reorganized the division in the water infrastructure branch to have a discrete drinking water infrastructure section and a clean water infrastructure section. And that was in order to bring down the backlog that we did have of engineering projects that were moving through the division. Holly, do you want to give us a little look at what the numbers are today?
Yeah, so we have 200, or I think it's like 202 in-house, and our backlog is currently 50. It's down to 50. I think at the highest it was, gosh, I think it was like 130 something. So
outside of the review timeframe. So we got called in front of legislators, we got fussed at, all kinds of things. And we made the changes that we need to make. And that part of that is this reorganization. So we will have 2 specific sections, specialized drinking water and clean water. And hopefully that will continue to move all of our actions faster. Holly's done a great job.
As long as the personnel cabinet signs off on it before 3/16.
Oh,
So we're just
won't
waiting
say a
on
name
the-
yet.
the last approval.
So 3/16 will be the date of that new supervisor, and we will wait to give a name until we have that final approval, but we feel like that's gonna happen. All right, so the next thing on the list is legislative update. This could be a very long discussion if we wanted it to be. But I will say that we've had several things move through. I know everybody's aware of the fluoride bill that has been a hot topic this session. In terms of the division stance on that, we're neutral. So we don't regulate it. That's a dental health provision. We regulate it as a contaminant with an MCL, and that's our role. However, we have been careful to point out that changes to requirements could affect the relationship between our water systems. So if local decisions are made in regionalized situations, that could affect the relationship or contractual relationship between our systems. So that's probably been the most important thing that we've had to say about that. So just to let you know the division's role on that. We've had several others. I have pages and pages of bills that have moved through that that we have been involved in commenting on. And is Carol on?
She didn't have it.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
Yes, I'm
you're
here.
there. Carol, are there any specific pieces of legislation that you want to mention in terms of the division? Without
Well,
getting too far out on a limb.
Yeah. We're tracking an awful lot of legislation this year. Of course, the most important piece for the Division of Water is SB 89, which is the Waters of the Commonwealth Bill, commonly called the Waters of the Commonwealth Bill. We've had a couple of resolutions about flooding and assistance with flooding that we're also tracking and commenting on as directed. But other than that, hopefully we've only got a week next week left, and then the veto period will begin. So we're almost at the very end.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Russell, would you like to talk about the legislation that's specific to Cody Waters?
Sure. Russell Neal, Staff Assistant with Kentucky Infrastructure Authority. House Joint Resolution 30 has passed the House and it's on to the Senate. The joint resolution is the list of Kentucky Waters projects that will be funded through the decision of the General Assembly. You can go onto KIA's website and find a copy of the report that was submitted to the Legislative Research Commission on December 1st of 2024. That report contains a list of projects along with project descriptions and a score for each of those projects. The criteria used to score those projects are in, I can't remember what the law number is that it's in, but there's 9 or 10 criteria. Most of those are financial criteria. They're economically, the goal is to determine economically restrained systems that need assistance. The intent was to help those economically restrained systems to get a better financial position to borrow money from other funding programs like the SRF. With the joint resolution, General Assembly right now is choosing to fund 34 projects. There were 3 or 4 projects that were removed or not funded. From what my understanding is, those projects will not be funded because they are line extensions for new work. What the committee has tried to do is fund projects for current infrastructure and determine which projects are needed for rehab and replacement. That was through their conversations, that's what they decided to do. A lot of larger projects will be funded by the planning and design portion, and not necessarily the entire construction portion for a new water plant or a new sewer plant. KIA staff did recommend changes to some of the criteria and some of the legislation, which is now being considered in House Bill 741. The major changes that we recommended were to, one, remove some of the financial criteria, which did not basically move the needle to determine which systems were economically disadvantaged. We also opened up the time frame for the time period for consent decrees and agreed orders. The original legislation said the consent decree or the decree order had to be take effect within the past year of the legislation. We opened that up to any system that is currently under an agreed order or consent decree under any period of time, as long as the project goes towards compliance with that consent decree or agreed order, that is a fundable project, no matter when they went under that. So those changes are being considered in 741. From what I was just looking at, that was introduced to the House on February 19th. It's had 2 successful readings, and right now it's been returned to the Appropriations and Revenue Committee for so we're anticipating some changes to the legislation. With those changes, KIA will hold meetings for potential borrowers or grantees as to the changes to educate those potential grantees and borrowers on the application process, the criteria from which they will be scored upon, and the follow-up process. Of the 34 projects that are currently on the funding list, the proposal is to fund all those via grants. They will not be a loan, they will be a grant. Again, that could change as it goes through this next phase in the Senate. With that, I'm happy to answer or entertain any questions that you all may have. We hit the ground running with it. As soon as it passed the General Assembly last year, we started to create a process for that. Again, the requirements of KIA is to only build a process for applying for the money and use the criteria in the law to score those projects. Those projects, that project list, then goes over to the General Assembly. They determine which projects are funded, and they determine how those projects are funded. So the KIA board, unlike any other funding program, the KIA board does not determine which projects are or are not funded. All the KIA board does is look at the report, approve the report, send it on to the owners.
Russ, can you remind us for this year's 34 projects what the total was?
So the total is not determined yet because that has to be determined in the Senate at this point. So it still could change. I know that the total, I don't even want to say what that potential total is, it could change. It's not as much because, again, some of those projects are being funded just for their planning and design and not for the entirety of the construction of the project. But I can get that for you, what it is for that.
So those projects were accepted in rank order, right?
They were accepted in scored order from greatest score to lowest score.
And that was actually maybe a little bit of a surprise, right? Because they could have chosen whatever projects they wanted to off of the list.
That's correct. They chose to fund it in scored order. They could have chosen to pick the last on the list and go up from there, but they chose to follow the recommendation of the KIA board.
Okay, any questions for Russ? on MW Waters. Just to kind of, because we can't skip it totally. SB 89 is hanging out there. There's nothing final on it. It's obviously a bill of great concern for the cabinet. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to read. There was a news article that was put out recently that summarized a letter that Secretary Goodman had written to Representative Gooch regarding our cabinet concerns with regard to that bill. It was a strong letter and an important letter. I think it encompassed a lot of the concerns that we have as a division, but that remains to be seen. It was not taken up in committee on Thursday, so it was discussed, and it was indicated that there may be amendments in a special called committee meeting on Tuesday. It may happen.
Which I think is going to be moved to Wednesday now. That's why I was
He
told.
knows more than I do. So, anyway, so maybe Wednesday. And so we'll wait to see what happens there. In any case, this process has highlighted areas where there are likely to be changes. And we'll just put a pin in it there and come back and talk about it next time when we have more decisions. What is this? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a House bill, it's an administrative bill that any legislation that's proposed that would have a greater than a $500,000 impact.
Every 2 years.
For every 2 years worth of impact, so $250,000 a year. So there are a lot of water, wastewater regulations that would certainly meet that low threshold. So that is one to keep an eye on as well.
On its face, it's unconstitutional, I think, but I also think it jeopardizes primacy for
right. I mean, think about PFAS
for drinking water,
right? I mean, like
delegation for clean water.
I mean, that's a very simple, just the MCL. I mean, easily $250,000.
Well, there are exceptions, however, Pete, for primacy and to maintain federal funding, but those may be some of the only exceptions that are in that bill.
The only other thing I'll say is that there's a bill that addresses state government workers and telework and all that kind of thing. And as we've seen with the federal workforce, changes that are made that impact those of us who have the pleasure to serve the public can have impacts on our programs. So we will we'll wait to see what happens there. If anything, although it sounds like it's going to be a study. Anybody have any questions that we could actually answer about legislation or the impacts of legislation? Or maybe are willing to answer. I put a note on here about regulatory revision schedule, and then Carol asked me, hey, what's this note? And I was like, I don't know. And then I had to think about it. So I remember now. So this is about drinking water rates. We are moving drinking water rates right now to amend for the new drinking water rules. We have to amend our regulations in order to gain primacy to take care of those rules. So the deal is, by April 2026, we have to be able to demonstrate to EPA that we have the regulatory authority to enforce those rules. And if we don't, then we're stuck in a loop of updating our interim primacy packages with EPA, which is a whole ordeal, and then getting primacy later. So our goal is to push those regulations by the end of April 2026 in order to stay on track to gain primacy of those rules. That's a big lift because regs move slow. And they seem to move slower now than even they used to. Lots of lead time for regulatory review, for governor's office review, for everybody wants to review it before it goes for review. So anyway, we are moving through that process. And also looking at other generate regulations to help improve regulations and to give systems and citizens more tools. I have made a commitment that we won't push anything that seems punitive for the water community. These are just going to be things that will enhance the work that we do. So we will certainly bring those to you and talk to you about it as we get those going. I've done enough talking. I don't want to just bring people in here and preach and yell and such. So let's go to branch manager updates from DOW. Dale?
Ocean Management Branch doesn't have a lot of updates, but I did want to bring to you today. Hopefully by now everybody is well aware that we have a growing drone program here at the Division of Water, which has been doing a great job expanding our data sets and our understanding of water resources in the state. And one of the things that we've been utilizing is a BAPI drone, which is allowing us to go get bathymetric data on reservoirs. As you can see, it'll produce some nice 2D representations of the reservoir, but we recently found a way to use those data to create 3D models of the bathymetric data. So this is actually Rice Lake near Stanford, and we think this is going to be very useful in communicating with both utilities and stakeholders about what the conditions are of their reservoirs and give them a really more tactile way of understanding what their situation is when it comes to things like sedimentation and where there may be problems or underperceived layers in the bathymetry where you might see undermining in the dam or areas around the edges of the lake. To us, this is a lot more intuitive for people than the 2D map, and helps maybe bring people along into understanding what they're looking at. So this is actually a 5-to-1 ratio, so kind of emphasizes the differences in the bathymetry. This is the 1-to-1 representation. If you guys like, I will pass it around, like show and tell. These were printed out by our Division of Enforcement, but I think this would be a really, really useful tool. It's a great way to visualize the data. That's a good question. I don't know.
No, they're all personal printers. I don't have any issues with this.
Just give me time. Just give me time. We'll have the drone program is a 3D printer.
What's your estimate
That's actually.
Right, so if you have any questions about that, I'm happy to direct you to our drone program. Also, we have our aerial drones that go out and are doing some great aerial photography as well. So I'm not sure what our capacity is for producing these on a massive scale, but can't hurt to ask.
I will also point out that Watershed Management Branch, they're our data gurus. They handle all of our GIS stuff, and they do a great job. We're working to launch 2 new viewers that during emergencies, the public will be able to see the number of connections out of water and under Moral Water Advisory, and be able to click on systems and know where some of those issues are. So I look forward to being able to share that information with the public. They do some, like every single day, I feel like I'm sending product notes over to them, like, can you get a map of this? Can you do this? And they just get it done. They're amazing. They have all the information. All right, Eileen, you're up for drinking water. Okay. Make sure you speak up really loud.
Just a couple of quick things about the Drinking Water Branch. As Sarah mentioned, we lost Alicia Jacobs as our manager, so we'll be getting somebody new. We have several FFTLs in the TA program that are new. Not all of them are new since the last meeting, but they're working on developing a corrosion control treatment program so that we can be prepared for all the new requirements for LCRI. We're also working on developing an electronic MOR We hope that'll be out by early summer, available to everyone. We have a lot of systems in here that are really instrumental in helping us test that and make sure that it actually works and it works well. So we hope to get lots of water systems on board using the new MOR. That will save us so much time and it will really improve our data management. Yeah, we have some cheerleaders in the room. We're super excited. We've been working on this for at least 2 years now. So let's see.
Talking about it for 15.
Yeah, talking about it even longer than that. We finished reviewing all the initial service line inventories, and we were one of the best states in the country for compliance. We had 15 systems that turned their inventories in late, and all of those were received by mid-December. So that was excellent. Now we have 100% submission for those inventories, and then we had only 10 systems that had inventories that didn't meet the minimum criteria that received violations for that. So excellent compliance. That was obviously, you all know, a really difficult challenge for everyone around the state, and we're really proud of everything that has been accomplished for that.
It's a lot of fun to be at the region board director meeting and be like, so how many surveys did you get in? We're like, 100%. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
It's like,
There's a lot of states that don't even have 50% compliance. Still, so.
Thank you to those that did everything they could to help us get that done. Lots of people in this room put in a lot of work.
Yeah. And I guess those are the main things. We're working on Chapter 8 updates, which are our state regs for drinking water, just for primacy. So that's in progress. And now Eileen's going to be talking about the WIN program, the voluntary lead testing in schools. So we'll turn it over to her.
Hello everybody, my name is Eileen Miller. I'm going to try to talk loud. Sorry for those of you in the room if I'm yelling at you, but I want everyone online to be able to hear as well. I'm going to just give a quick update about our voluntary lead testing in schools and childcare program that we have here at the division. So for those of you that don't know, this is our program that Division Water provides free lead sampling of drinking water to public schools and licensed childcare facilities across the state. So it's a great program. I know I've talked about it a lot, so I'm going to try to keep this brief. If you have more questions about the details, I'm happy to answer them later. But just an important note for public water systems to understand is that sampling under this program can be used for LCRI compliance starting in 2027. So if you have child cares or schools that you serve that get tested under our program, that can work for your compliance. So just something to keep in mind. Funding, we have plenty of funding available for this program, so we can complete all the sampling requests that you might have. We also have remediation funding coming available, which means we can help fix a problem when we find it. So we can go in, we can sample, we can find the lead, but now we will have funding so that if we do find any lead in the drinking water at a facility, we can help them fix the problem to get rid of the lead and at no cost to them as well. So that's great news. So that's just something to share with any child care schools you know. If you're a parent, you have a child that goes to a school or daycare, spread the word. Yes.
Doug Kembler, BHU. So does that funding be available if we did the testing on behalf of the schools as well?
Yes.
Correct?
So a lot of utilities are choosing to do the early sampling themselves, which is great. Encourage you guys to build those relationships with your schools and daycares. But if you do a sampling and you have a high result come back, you can send that child care or school to our program. We'll go and do another sampling just to confirm, and then they can be eligible for that remediation as well. So
2 steps.
yes.
So have you collectively developed any peer communication or when you do have space for parents and PTAs?
We do. We have some example letters that schools and child cares can use to communicate with their parents, their PTAs and stuff like that. We have some templates they can use.
Those are available online, right?
I don't think we have it online on our program website, but we do let every facility know that they're available if they need them once the reports are generated. So,
Our experience is school districts are terrified of it.
so that's my last point is I encourage water systems and really any partner to talk to schools and childcares. I know there are schools and childcares that are very hesitant to enroll in this program or just in general to even have the water system come test their water. I know it can sound scary, I think, to an administrator that has 9,000 other requirements, things going wrong. There's like a big, scary, monster under the bed, and they're like, we don't want to poke it, we don't want to bring it out. It's just, we don't know it's there, it's fine. And I understand that. So what I encourage is if you can just get them to come talk to us, then usually we can answer a lot of their questions, kind of put them at ease and make them understand the importance of it, but also the true likelihood that they're going to have a huge problem. And I think that's the big thing. And also that, we're not going to get ahead of them. If a school does have a problem, I'm not going to go advertise it to their parents before they have a chance to digest it and talk to the parents themselves. So being able to communicate that to schools and daycares is a big help. And I understand a lot of water systems or partner agencies, don't want to have that conversation. That's completely fine. If you can just get them to come to us, I'm happy to have that conversation for you with them. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to their facilities. So I just want to give you a snapshot of kind of where the program's at. Thank you, Watershed Management Branch, for making this map for me. These are counties that we have facilities signed up in. So the dark green is a county that has a facility that has been sampled. It doesn't mean the entire county is complete. It just means there's a facility there. And the light green is counties that have facilities signed up that have not yet been sampled. So we just wanted to kind of give you a visual of where our program has been at, and you can see some of the gaps. So, if you are in those regions, happy to come to your region. We just so far haven't had anybody sign up from those areas. So a little bit of the data, we've had 157 facilities sign up for the program. We had a big influx recently, and part of that was from water systems sending schools and daycares our way. So we've only sampled 74 of those, but we're getting to all those that have signed up right now. Total, we've had 637 outlets sampled. Our highest lead level that we've seen so far was 59.1 parts per billion, which is a lot scary. Still much lower than a lot of states have seen. However, once we investigated this outlet, we found it was a sink in the corner of a basement at the school that nobody used as much. So it had probably been sitting with stagnant water for a very long time. Once the school realized that, they realized they needed to flush that sink more often, get the water flowing, and so that was good for them. We went back and resampled a couple times, and they have no problem there. So we've seen a few, but you can see 78% of our samples have come back below 1 parts per billion or non-detect. So this is some of the data that I try to show schools and childcare when they sign up, or if they come to us with questions, just to show right now, we haven't seen any facilities that have systematic lead problems. So no gutting of your walls, changing your whole plumbing. It's usually 1 or 2 faucets or a drinking water fountain here or there that might need to be replaced, which again, we're going to have the funding to cover that cost for them. So the most common remediation though is simply flushing your pipes, and every morning doing a 30-second flush can reduce the level of lead. It's a temporary fix until we can replace the faucet, but if anything else, just communicate with your schools and daycares to just flush their pipes, especially after long periods of closure. So that's all I have. If you want more information, that's our website there, and you're more than welcome to reach out to myself or Gabe Tanner, the coordinators for this program. Any questions you might have. For those of you in the room, we have a few flyers on the table up front. If you're interested in picking any of those up to hand out to anybody.
We should say we wouldn't be able to do this work and all of our, all of the work in the lead program without the help of Kentucky Rural Water. And then Kentucky Rural Water is working on this program, and then RCAP has really been essential also with helping out with the inventories. So those partners have been really essential in helping us be in compliance and do great work in this program.
Do the schools realize that they're gonna have to do this here shortly, regardless of whether they want to or not?
Well, schools do have the option to decline if they choose to. But the water utility has the responsibility to make the effort to sample at schools and job fairs.
Oh, so the schools don't have to allow people into sample?
No. Yeah, they're allowed to decline. The utility has to make 2 good faith efforts to try to sample there, and if the school declines, then the system can move on.
Which may they can decline, but you still need their participation if you're doing inventory investigations like POEs and stuff. So that's something we had to talk to the Jefferson County School District about, or whoever it's called, JCPS, that whether or not, again, we still needed to get into the facility to try to do POE identifications, and et cetera. And some campuses are pretty big, so you're not going to be able to do all POEs. You're going to have to do some digging, when they have outbuildings and things like that.
I think the data is really encouraging, and I think if I were a school system that initially declined, no thank you, don't want you in here. If I saw this data and saw, hey, typically, we're not seeing a problem, very low number of problems, and we've got money to help, then I think that helps us get in the door. So I think just getting through half of this list to start with gives us better tools for communication with our schools to make sure that the schools are safe for our children. I mean, as a parent, who has a kid still in school, but, I've put a couple through, I wonder, they're going to school and old buildings and, what are the chances? And that school was one that said, no, thank you. And I was like, oh, I can help you with this. So I think it gives them a little comfort. I hope that increases participation, the more the one kids help.
Sarah, Richard here again. What's the extent of the help? It doesn't go as far as like replacing all of the lines in the school. Is it just mitigation, consulting?
That's a great question, Richard. Can you speak to that a little bit, Gabe, on how we would go about assisting with any kind of replacement?
Yeah, so it really honestly doesn't have we're only going to go so far into the plumbing. The thought process is that we're going to probably look at fixture replacements as the majority of remediation. So what we do, we would actually reimburse the school, the child cares with money.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So whether it's the fixtures themselves, if they were to hire a plumber, someone outside of the school system, we would also pay for the labor. So we reimburse that. We're not really seeing lead service lines in these schools. But if there were a scenario where we came across maybe like a child care or something that actually had a lead service line, we would work with them too on that as well.
So the original WIN money or grants didn't provide for remedial action, or they do now?
Yeah, so they updated the funding to where so we've applied for funding, we've gotten funding that can be used for remediation, and then they also came back and said that the money that we already have, we could also convert that and use some of that funding as well. So we already have money in place to pay for the remediation, but we're in the process of getting approval from EPA to actually make that bulk of money even higher by some of the older ones.
I'd like it. If you could burn through it fast, what are the procurement challenges you have there? Can you give them can you give a school district because it's not a government, or because it's not a private entity? Like a daycare might be a different thing, right?
I think it goes to rural water, right?
Yeah, so we're in the process of working with rural water in basically organizing managing the reimbursement program.
Yes, it's more of an administrative challenge.
Yeah, that's what I want
for us.
That doesn't mean it's only for rural, it's just they're helping, which they're great.
Right. And one thing that, I thought was good to hear, like we haven't had the lead line issues, it's mostly the fixtures, and, it's really like individual fixtures, I think, in most of the facilities that we've been to. So presumably not even really a high cost replacement within anywhere that we've been so far. In fact, I probably should.
And the majority of samples that we're
Good luck
seeing with
finding
lead
some
level, the 30-second flushes are indicating that the source is really the gas fixtures, these commercial, brass fixtures and, kitchen sinks and stuff that we're seeing in lead levels. So it really does seem to be, mainly in point of use locations. So
Almost always kitchen.
kitchens or some classroom sinks, we're seeing some.
Or the plumber's closet, or maybe the janitor's closet.
No, we're not testing this.
No, that's, I just put a sign on that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking from the analysis that's been done by us and others that very unlikely that post 1940s, you're gonna see any lead service lines, at least that for structures. You're still gonna see lead and copper soldering and stuff like that. But if you're gonna try to focus on the higher risk facilities, I might think about focusing, on the older ones. But that said, you gotta cover all your bases.
Yeah, we've had the majority of our facilities that we've tested, we all married, but we've had a lot of Head Starts on them. Head Starts have a federal requirement that now requires their facilities to actually be tested. It used to be they could use water system compliance lead testing as their federal review for funding, but now they actually have to have testing done in the facility. So we're seeing a lot of facilities anywhere from the 1960s through 1990s, 2000s. So,
And I heard that some of the fixtures were replaced by Amazon parts because they were cheap in some of the schools, so don't do that.
yeah, and that's part too. The remediation is required.
So it isn't age always, it's where it comes from and what's in it.
Yeah, they have, they've updated basically those lead-free bands over the last several years, and up in 2023 and 24, they're actually manufacturer required to certify their fixtures as lead-free, and so we would only, that's part of the procedures that the utility or facility were to change out their fixtures, they would have to use a recent lead-free certified fixture.
I'm assuming, yes, just clarifying point that I'm assuming, but I don't want to make an assumption. This is for public schools only. We have a lot of private schools in our service area, so.
Yes, so right now the funding is just for public schools and then any licensed shop here.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I didn't want to make the assumption saying, oh, no, actually.
Yeah, the federal grant requires that it has to be a public school. But with that said, if there is private schools that are interested, I don't think that it could hurt to at least talk to them.
I'll stay away from it, but if we get the question, I'm just curious.
Once they disband the DOE, then.
It won't matter. Right. So what are communities finding in terms of their public schools and private schools willingness to participate in the program so far?
I'm kind of split in our area. Yeah, some are very hesitant, pull back, and some are, engaging.
You don't have a whole broad area. You probably have all these little school districts.
We have 32 different cities that we serve, and then
they all have their own school
inside of those 30. No, they don't all have their own. But inside the city, we would have, there's no broad brush that we can paint those two. Each one has their own private school, or each one has their own county, school. Just
what about the diocese? What do they think?
I don't know that I will go back and see what kind of conversations, if any, we've had with diocese.
Well, we have dozens of schools.
We have a lot.
We have plenty.
Licensed childcare, so there's a lot to. I don't know how many of those are built for 2014, but there's a lot of them. So.
And we do have a certain percentage of the Head Starts that we tested that have been in elementary schools. So where we're not maybe necessarily able to get to all the elementary schools in the school district, we are getting to some of these individual elementary schools. And we do make the effort to reach out to superintendents and talk to them about, we're going to go in and do the Head Start portion, which usually includes the cafeteria of the elementary school. So we are testing there. But typically they've allowed us to do the Head Start, but they are not necessarily adding their other schools to the program. But it's a work in progress with that.
All right, thank you very much for that update and the conversation. I want to move on because as usual, I'm falling short of my own expectations. It is 12:05. So let's move to committee reports. I don't have a list of committees that have reports, so I will count on those leaders to speak up. Liz, do you have a
I do. So the Compliance and Regulations Committee met on February 18th. They hadn't met in a little while, so they're getting back going. Kim Paget and now Ethan Gibbon are the co-chairs of that committee since Alicia left. Kim would have loved to be here. She's at the Capitol today. Her daughter won the the national championship for cheerleading and is being recognized there.
Wow.
Kim Paget.
That's neat.
Yeah. So she's not able to get the report out, and Ethan's out sick today. So at the meeting, we talked about a couple of potential revisions to our regulations, Chapter 8. The main two that we talked about were developing or discussing how water systems will update population size. There's 3 methods that are approved in that reg right now, and we're seeing some conflicts in that with in the way that water systems are updating information to us. So we'd like to have a discussion about, revisiting that regulation. And then the other is the bottled water regulations. So just taking a look at those. And so just beginning the discussion right now. The Lead and Drinking Water Committee didn't meet in this last quarter. We have a meeting coming up on April 9th at 10 o'clock, if anyone wants to attend. And if anyone wants to get involved in any of the subgroups, they are corrosion control treatment, service line replacements and funding, sampling, schools and other tap sampling, service line inventories, and communications and public education. So that work group we've been kind of waiting to see how everything goes with the LCRI and giving people time to get familiar with the LCRI. But now it's getting to be time that we can really get started and start developing and updating all of our guidance and other materials for it. So I encourage everyone to get involved in that. And you can reach out to me, Elizabeth Dowling, if you want to get into that committee or get an invitation to our next meeting.
Any questions for Liz on compliance and regulations or lead and drinking water? Other committee updates?
I'll give a fast one. This is Ariana Langeman with Rural Water. Real fast on the PFAS committee. Not a lot of new developments on that, but we do have another full committee meeting March 31st at 2 p.m.
Okay.
I said fast.
That was fast. It was so fast, I'm still writing. All right, so any other committee updates?
If Josiah's not here, our nutrient subcommittee is meeting on Monday, the 10th at 2 p.m.
All right, so going forward, what will be really helpful is, again, just having these things on a calendar so that we know when they're taking place. And then we'll do a better job also of asking who's going to have committee updates, so it's not just a blank spot on the agenda.
You could set up a Teams thing where you have a calendar for this whole group that you can log in on. And then you could have comps to their invites and stuff.
Good idea.
I'm not the one to do it.
Me either. Like, I'm on so many teams. I have to search my teams sometimes. So, okay, I'm not missing anybody? Anybody, anything on committees? All right.
Sarah, just a quick question.
Yes,
Can
sir.
we email John if we have a change for the subcommittees? Is that the process or we need to go
John
through the
Carlson.
chair?
Right.
So we'll email
Yeah.
John and, because we do have a couple small changes, but it's all good.
Yes.
Thank you.
So any committee membership issues or contact information, committee date, meeting dates, updates, all those will go to John Carlton, john.carlton@ky.gov, because he's the only one that keeps my life organized, and it helps a lot. I
A lot of
don't
those-
even look at my calendar
A
anymore.
lot of those subcommittee lists were old, and we want to update and make sure that the names and the people and the contact information on there is correct. We included all of the emails that were on those lists in the last two or three emails, and we got a whole bunch to bounce back, which is one of the reasons we're passing that contact list around to everybody. And so we'll do the same thing to those online as well. So.
Thank you.
I'm super lucky to have John managing my calendar. I don't even try anymore because I schedule something and it screws everything up. I just open up my calendar every day and say, what fresh hell is today? And just go, you know, that's just how we do it. And it's fun. I enjoy it. I'm tired at the end of the day. Who wants to have energy at the end of the day? Thank you guys so much for being here and your participation. I'm going to open this up now for any, one division announcement. The first ever Kentucky Division of Water Regulatory Forum will be April 23rd here in these rooms. Registration is now open. We have 125 seats. So if you're interested, please register soon. I think we have an interesting agenda and time to interact with all the staff. So you'll probably meet people that you've never seen before, but perhaps have seen their names on letters. So that, I think that'll be an interesting event. Hopefully something we'll move forward with annually. Pete, you wanted to say a word about former director Jack Wilson, who we lost since our last meeting.
Yes, so Jack passed away of a long-term illness. He was in pretty good health most of his life, and just kind of caught up with him at the end, but as everything always does. But I just wanted to give a nod to Jack's long-standing director. I think he did 14 years as the director. It kind of
God bless him.
led the division. Yeah, no kidding. It's amazing he lived as long as he did. And he led the division sort of not through its infancy, but its childhood and adolescence, and really formed the commitment to mission at the Division of Water and the commitment to science-based decisions. And Jack left when I worked for him, and he was invited to leave, as we all are eventually. And he told me, I said, Jack, what do you think happened? He said, well, they only give you so many no's, but the thing is, they don't tell you how many. So, but I just wanted to give a nod to Jack. There's a celebration of life tomorrow in Lexington at the Presbyterian Church on East Main Street at 3 o'clock, if anybody wants to go. But I just thought we should recognize the people that got us to where we are.
Those friends. Any other comments or announcements?
Just a question, Sarah, the federal budget, I totally lost my sight on that.
You had control of that?
Too early yet to know how it's affecting your grants and the different programs. I know the president sends his budget out.
So we're still waiting for things to shake out. That's about all I can say.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
I can tell you this, that AWWA and AMWA had a meeting with Kramer last week. The acting assistant administrator for water. She said that all the money, infrastructure funding should be flowing, and if it's not, somebody needs to contact her. That's what she said to AWWA and AMWA in that meeting. Okay, I don't know what reality is on the ground, but that's what sort of statement.
We're in regular contact.
Okay.
Yeah, I was sure you were. I have lost total track of it.
Yeah, so things are just a little hinky right now. And we are going to be very interested to see how it goes as well. Our understanding is whatever money we've been awarded is ours. And that's what we're talking. So we will continue to work
Checks
through
and
it.
bail.
It is business as usual at the Division of Water, and we will continue to do the work. We will continue to push forward, and we will continue to expect other people to also meet their obligations. Any other questions? Should I finish? Thank you guys very much for your time and attention. I still got about 15 minutes. Thank you guys.
You laughed at it like that, probably.
I said, no, he'll be good for you. He said,
Yeah.